Hey, this is a video for Energy Flow 1. So go ahead and set up a new entry in your Cornell notes. Remember to start a new page for this video. And also check out the essential vocabulary. Today we will be discussing trophic levels. And in that we'll be discussing producer, autotroph, consumer, heterotroph, herbivore, carnivore, omnivore. We'll also be discussing decomposers and food chain and food web. So trophic levels, simply put, are the feeding levels within an ecosystem. And troph simply means food. And when you connect these trophic levels or the different organisms, you use an arrow. And this is important. The arrows are showing energy flow. So the algae is giving its energy to the stonefly larva. The stonefly larva is consuming the algae. Now at the bottom level of these trophic levels, we have the producers or autotrophs. And they will synthesize their glucose directly from the sun through the process of photosynthesis. We discussed this in a previous unit. Examples are plants and algae. Beyond the producers, we have consumers or heterotrophs. Hetero means different, so this is different feeding. Now heterotrophs are obtaining their glucose by consuming other organisms. So if it consumes something else that is living, it's a heterotroph. All of these animals are heterotrophs, also fungi. Now within these levels, we have a primary consumer. Primary consumers directly consume producers. They are known as herbivores. Herb means plant, vor means to eat. They eat plants. Common examples, a rabbit, a grasshopper, and an elephant. A secondary consumer, in this example, consumes the primary consumer. So in this example, we got the shad, we got the bluegill. Common examples, you have a spider, a snake, and a fox. Now, as you go beyond a secondary consumer, you can have a tertiary consumer, and those are consumers that consume secondary consumers. Also, they are known as carnivores. And an example would be a tiger, a wolf, and an eagle. And in addition, you can go beyond a tertiary to a quaternary, but there is a limit to how many organisms, how many different links on these chains you can have. But one thing we didn't mention is we didn't mention an omnivore. Omnivores consume both autotrophs. This copepod is eating the algae, notice the arrow. It's also eating the mosquito larva. Because it's eating an animal and a plant, or a consumer and a producer, it is considered an omnivore. Common examples include humans, bears, rats. One thing that ties every single ecosystem together are decomposers. And decomposers are important. They're not shown in a lot of these food chains and food webs, but they are consumers that are breaking down the dead organisms and they're recycling the nutrients in an ecosystem. Examples that I have chosen for you are mushrooms, bacteria, and worms. There are many other types of decomposers. Now, a food chain versus a food web. A food chain is literally just a single component, and a food web is everything put together. So in this example of a food chain, we have phytoplankton, mosquito larva, bluegill, and a cormorant. But you could have another single chain depending on how you followed the arrows. Phytoplankton, mosquito larva, copepod, bluegill, shad, cormorant. Now, not all of these food chains are going to be physically possible because of the amount of energy that's transferred. We'll talk about that later. But a food web is actually a lot more intricate. A food web will tell you what will happen. For example, what if the shad suddenly disappeared from this lake? Now, this is saying that a single food chain will definitely be disrupted, but it will also tell you how other organisms will respond. So anything that eats the shad, like the cormorant, the population would go down because it would be reduced in a food source. Now, anything that is eaten by the shad, their populations would increase. For example, there is no predator to be feasting on the rotifers, the copepods, and the bluegills, so their populations would increase. But then as their populations increase, you're going to have populations under them decreasing. Now, once you get all of these levels, it becomes a little bit complicated, and we'll be practicing some of this in class on paper. So there is a lot of information that was provided for you today I wish for you to respond to this check for understanding. I hope that this video was informative. I thank you for your attention, and I will see you soon.